You do not lose respect because you stay silent, but because you keep explaining what should have been lived. If your mind is still reacting to every opinion and defending every choice, you are not governing yourself, you are being governed. Most suffering does not come from what people say about you, but from how quickly you accept their judgment as truth. Your thoughts race after approval and recoil from criticism, and in that movement you lose the steadiness that reason demands. The Stoic life begins when you stop handing your inner authority to voices outside you and start examining every judgment before you believe it. This series will guide you through that inner discipline step by step, so you can live without needing constant explanation, and instead let your conduct speak with quiet certainty. If you want to walk this path with others who are learning to rule their own minds, then subscribe and stay here with us. Number 1. Guard your character and stop defending every honest choice. Listen closely. The habit of explaining yourself too much is not a sign of honesty. It is often a sign that your mind has grown weak in the presence of other people's judgments. A man who knows what is right does not tremble because someone else fails to see it at once. He does not chase every doubt that is thrown at him. He does not rush to defend every clean action as if truth were fragile. He stands on what is within his power. He guards his character. He accepts that other minds are free to misunderstand. And he refuses to spend his life begging for approval from people who were never assigned to govern his soul. You have likely done this many times. You have spoken too fast because silence felt like surrender. You have explained a choice 3 times because one person looked unconvinced. You have turned a simple act of integrity into a courtroom scene in your own head. You have tried to win peace by making everyone agree with you, but peace does not come from winning attention. Peace comes from ruling yourself. A man who needs to explain every honest choice has handed part of his mind to the crowd. He has made other people's reaction into a master. That is not freedom. That is servitude dressed as politeness. Examine this clearly. What is it that truly belongs to you? Your judgments, your choices, your desire to act well, your refusal to lie, your ability to endure insult without becoming corrupt. These things are yours. The opinions of others are not yours. Their pace is not yours. Their understanding is not yours. Their mood is not yours. Their memory is not yours. Their respect is not yours to command. You can offer worthy conduct. You cannot force wise reception. To forget this is to begin living as if the world were a mirror that owes you a flattering image. The world owes you nothing of the kind. It offers facts. It offers people. It offers difficulty. It offers misunderstanding. Then it watches what sort of soul you become in response. So the first discipline is simple and severe. Before you explain yourself, ask whether explanation serves virtue or vanity. Ask whether you are clarifying a matter in good faith or feeding a hunger to be seen as right. Ask whether your words are needed or merely nervous. Often the honest answer is painful. You are not speaking because truth requires it. You are speaking because your ego cannot stand being doubted. Strip away that weakness. Let the discomfort remain. A man grows by bearing what he would rather avoid. If you can endure an awkward silence without running to patch it with extra speech, you are already training the mind to obey reason instead of fear. There are moments when explanation is proper. A duty may require clarity. A promise may require detail. A mistake may require correction. Stoicism does not command silence in every case. It commands discipline. It asks whether speech is guided by reason or by the itch to be approved. It asks whether you are speaking for the good of the moment or for the protection of your image. Image is a poor ruler. It makes a man theatrical. It makes him plead. It makes him perform integrity instead of living it. Character is better. Character does not need decoration. Character can be plain. It can be quiet. It can even be misunderstood for a time and remain untouched in its worth. Look at the people who constantly explain themselves. They are exhausted. They are forever on trial in their own mind. They believe every raised eyebrow requires a speech. They believe every disagreement is an emergency. They believe every silence must be filled before it becomes judgment. What a costly slavery this is. They surrender their present moment to imaginary juries. They carry the weight of other people's curiosity as if it were a sacred burden. But why should it be? Why should another person's confusion force you into unrest? Why should their impatience rule your breath? Why should their assumption decide the state of your mind? It should not if you have any reverence for reason. The honest man does not confuse being questioned with being threatened. The weak man does. The honest man can allow a misunderstanding to stand for a while because he knows time reveals what agitation cannot. If your conduct is just, then let it live. If your motive is clean, then let it remain clean. You are not diminished because someone has not yet caught up to the truth. Truth does not rot because it was not explained at once. What rots is the soul that begins to depend on applause in order to feel upright. You must learn the difference between proving and practicing. Many people live as if virtue were an argument to be won. It is not. Virtue is a manner of living. It is seen in restraint. It is seen in patience. It is seen in a steady face when others expect panic. It is seen in a refusal to descend into quarrel for the sake of being understood. The person who knows his duty does not need to turn every action into a speech. He does what is fitting and lets the moment stand. This is not coldness. This is strength. It is the calm of a soul that no longer begs the world to certify its worth. When someone misreads you, there is a small wound. Let it be small. Do not inflate it into a catastrophe. Do not pace inside your skull, repeating your defense. The wound becomes larger when you keep touching it. So step back. Ask what is actually happening. A person failed to understand. That is all. Maybe they were careless. Maybe they were biased. Maybe they were tired. Maybe they were unreasonable. None of those things is within your command. What is within your command is your own conduct after the misunderstanding appears. Will you become bitter? Will you become loud? Will you become theatrical? Or will you remain faithful to what is right and allow your life to answer over time? This is where the hard work begins. Your mind will resist. It wants immediate repair. It wants the comfort of being liked now. It wants the relief of hearing, "Yes, you were right." But the soul that demands immediate vindication is not yet free. It is still ruled by appetite. It craves the sweet but shallow drink of approval. Starve that appetite. Do not feed it every time it opens its mouth. Teach yourself to live without constant confirmation. Sit with the fact that some truths are not recognized in the hour they are lived. The season of misunderstanding is part of the training. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches you not to make your worth dependent on the mood of others. Begin with the morning. Before the day scatters your attention, sit still and ask yourself what kind of person you intend to be when challenged, not what words you will use, not what image you will defend. Ask what kind of soul you will bring into the day. Will you choose honesty without vanity? Will you choose firmness without harshness? Will you choose silence when explanation would only expose vanity? Write this down if you must. Say it plainly. Today I will not rush to defend what is already honest. Today I will let conduct carry what words cannot improve. Today I will remember that my task is not to control every judgment of others, but to preserve the soundness of my own. Then prepare for the first test. It will arrive. Someone will question you. Someone will imply doubt. Someone will ask in a tone that feels unfair. At that moment, the old habit will rise. You will feel the urge to explain more than is necessary. You will feel the urge to overcorrect. You will feel the urge to add details until the other person cannot possibly object. Do not obey that urge at once. Pause, not for drama, for judgment. 1 breath, 2 breaths. Enough to remember that a free mind does not leap at every sound. In that pause, ask what is truly required. If clarity is needed, give clarity. If a simple answer is enough, then stop there. If the other person is not asking in good faith, then do not hand them your piece as well. There is no virtue in emptying yourself into a bad audience. A strong man can answer briefly without being rude. He can say what is necessary and leave the rest. He does not need to arrange his words as if every listener were a king before whom he must kneel. He knows that dignity is not arrogance. Dignity is order. It is the refusal to become scattered in the presence of pressure. It is the ability to speak from steadiness rather than from the panic of being disliked. When you answer in this way, you begin to teach people how to treat your mind. Not through force, through consistency. They see that your center is not easy to pull apart. They see that you are not available for every emotional storm. That quiet firmness earns more respect than endless pleading ever will. You must also consider the shape of your inner speech. Many men explain themselves to others because they first explain themselves to their own fear. They tell themselves, if I do not defend this now, they will think less of me. There it is. The real wound is not the question, it is the image. You are afraid of being reduced in the eyes of another. But why should that fear rule you? Why should a person's limited view become the judge of your inner worth? Your worth is measured by virtue. If you acted with justice, then justice has already answered. If you acted with restraint, then restraint has already answered. If you acted with courage, then courage has already answered. What more do you need? To search for more is to reveal that you trust the crowd more than your conscience. This is not a call to stubbornness. A stubborn man is not strong. He merely refuses correction. Stoic strength is not rigidity. It is rational firmness. It can admit error when error is real. It can clarify when clarity helps. It can apologize when apology is due. But it does all this without collapsing into self-defense. It does not grovel. It does not make a spectacle of guilt. It does not multiply words to hide weakness. It simply aligns itself with truth. That is the only thing worthy of a free soul. Truth can be owned without shame and without show. The world will constantly ask you to perform. It will ask you to explain your choices to people who were not present for your reasoning. It will ask you to satisfy curiosity that has no right to your interior life. It will ask you to justify boundaries as if they were crimes. It will ask you to apologize for not being endlessly available. Do not obey every demand. You are not a public monument built for every passerby to inspect. You are a human being with a mind to govern and a life to live. Guard your inner room. Not every question deserves entry. Not every suspicion deserves your energy. Not every conversation deserves your deepest reasons. A wise person gives what is fitting and withholds what is unnecessary. He does not live behind walls of secrecy. He lives with good judgment. He knows that oversharing can be a form of weakness when it is driven by the need to be liked. He knows that too many words often cloud rather than clarify. He knows that some people do not ask for understanding. They ask for access. They want a confession to control. They want a defense to dissect. They want proof that you can be moved. But the soul that has trained itself in reason need not volunteer itself to every inquiry. It can remain courteous and still be closed to intrusion. Train yourself to answer only what serves the moment. This is a practice. It will feel difficult at first because the tongue is trained by habit, and habit has been obeying panic. But habits can be retrained. When the question comes, stop and identify the true demand. Is this person owed a full account or only a simple answer? Is my silence wise here or evasive? Is this conversation advancing justice or merely feeding social hunger? Ask these questions quickly and honestly, then answer accordingly. If the answer is enough, let it stand. If more is needed, provide it without defensiveness. Your goal is not to appear mysterious. Your goal is to remain governed by reason. There is also a deeper reason to stop explaining yourself too much. Every unnecessary defense weakens your sense of self-command. Each time you rush to fill the silence, you train the mind to believe that discomfort must be escaped at once. Each time you over-justify a clean decision, you teach yourself that your own conscience is not enough. This is corrosive. It turns a person into someone who can no longer endure being momentarily misunderstood. But misunderstanding is not the end of the world. It is often merely the price of having a backbone. The man who never offends nobody often stands for nothing. He is so eager to be received well that he surrenders the hard lines of his soul. That is a poor trade. Consider the daily practice of voluntary discomfort. Choose moments where you let the uneasy silence remain. Choose moments where you do not rush to rescue your image. Choose moments where you are content to be briefly unseen in your full intention. This is not punishment. It is training. The body becomes strong through resistance. The mind becomes strong through resistance too. Let your spirit learn that it can survive a room that does not instantly applaud. Let it learn that it can survive a question left partly unanswered when answer would only satisfy ego. This makes the soul less needy and more stable. A stable soul does not panic under social pressure. It keeps its own counsel. In the evening, return to yourself. Review the day without excuses. Ask where you defended too much. Ask where you stayed silent in strength. Ask where you explained yourself because truth required it, and where you explained yourself because fear required it. Be exact. Do not flatter yourself. Do not condemn yourself theatrically either. Just see. Seeing clearly is part of virtue. If you notice a weakness, then you have already weakened its power. If you pretend not to see it, then it owns you longer. Write down the moments that mattered, what triggered you, what you felt, what you said, what you should have left unsaid, what you should have said more plainly. This kind of self-examination is not a luxury. It is the craft of a disciplined mind. As you review the day, ask another question. Did I protect my reputation or my character? Those are not the same. Reputation is public and fragile. Character is private and durable. Reputation can be damaged by lies. Character can only be damaged by your own consent to dishonor. When you know the difference, you stop chasing shadows. You stop being available to every rumor. You stop tying your worth to the opinions of those who may not know you at all. You understand that a good life is not built on being universally understood. It is built on being inwardly sound. If the outside world sees your soundness, good. If it does not, still good. The measure of the day is whether you lived according to reason. What does reason demand here? It demands that you do not invite chaos into your mind by overreacting to every slight. It demands that you do not become your own prosecutor. It demands that you do not spend the whole afternoon rehearsing a perfect reply to a comment that will not matter in a month. It demands that you hold fast to the work before you. Your duty is not to win every conversation. Your duty is to remain just. Sometimes justice looks like a brief answer. Sometimes it looks like a calm correction. Sometimes it looks like no answer at all. But justice never looks like frantic self-protection. That is the mark of a person who has forgotten what is truly good. The truly good is not being praised. It is not being seen as clever. It is not being agreed with. The truly good is acting well. It is speaking truthfully. It is preserving temper. It is refusing dishonor even when dishonor could win the room. Hold this firmly. When you know the good is inside your conduct, then your freedom becomes harder to steal. A man cannot be made small by misunderstanding if his standard is internal. He cannot be made desperate by disapproval if he does not worship approval. He cannot be thrown off course by every passing opinion if his direction is set by principle. This is the inner dignity you must cultivate, not loudness, not self-importance. Dignity, the kind that can sit in a difficult conversation and remain whole. The kind that can hear a false accusation without needing to claw for immediate vindication. The kind that can answer a sincere question plainly and then let the matter rest. The kind that can be calm in public because it has already become orderly in private. No one becomes steady by accident. Steadiness is built through repeated refusals to follow the wild impulses of the untrained mind. You may ask, how to begin when your habits are old? Begin with one sentence less, one defense less, one explanation less where none is needed. That is enough for today. Do not imagine you must become perfect at once. Stoic discipline is not a single dramatic act. It is a repeated choice to give power back to what is within your control. The next time you feel the urge to fill space with more justification, ask yourself whether you are teaching the moment or begging it. Ask whether the words are needed to preserve order or merely to soothe your anxiety. Then choose accordingly. Progress is made in these small turns of the soul. You will also need to accept that some people will dislike you for not over-explaining. They have become accustomed to access. They have been trained by others who cannot bear silence. When you begin to answer less and stand more firmly, you may be judged as cold. Let them judge. Their judgment is not your command. Your task is to remain humane, fair, and clear. Do not become harsh simply because you have become selective. Do not hide behind Stoic language to excuse rudeness. A disciplined man is never petty. He is simply unwilling to trade his center for social comfort. That is a different matter entirely. There is a quiet power in letting your life speak. When your conduct is consistent, there is less need for speeches. People learn what they need to know through time. They see how you work. They see how you endure. They see whether you keep your word. They see whether your yes means yes and your no means no. This kind of witness is stronger than 100 explanations. A man whose actions are clean has no need to decorate them with nervous language. He can stand beside them with peace. What is built on truth does not require constant repair. It requires steady maintenance and clear judgment. Do not confuse restraint with weakness. To restrain the tongue when it is eager to prove itself is a form of strength. To remain composed when challenged is a form of strength. To accept that you may not be understood at once is a form of strength. To continue doing what is right without demanding immediate recognition is a form of strength. These are not passive habits. They are active disciplines of the soul. They require vigilance. They require self-command. They require the willingness to feel the sting of being overlooked without becoming poisoned by it. The untrained mind hates this. It wants emotional sugar. It wants quick relief. It wants to say everything in order to feel instantly safe. But safety purchased through over-explanation is false safety. It lasts only until the next doubt appears. Then the whole cycle begins again. True safety comes from a mind that can sit with uncertainty and not break. It comes from a conscience that has nothing to hide. It comes from the knowledge that you are responsible only for your own rational action. Once that is understood, a great burden falls away. You stop trying to control the impossible. You stop trying to govern another person's interpretation. You return to your own task. And what is your task? To think rightly, to choose rightly, to speak rightly, to act rightly, to refuse to be dragged by impulse, to refuse to become defensive where no defense is needed, to refuse to surrender your day to people who are not the keepers of your virtue. This is enough work for one lifetime. Indeed, it is more than enough. Yet it is noble work. It gives the day shape. It gives the mind dignity. It gives the body a reason to rise with steadiness rather than dread. So when the next chance comes to explain yourself too much, do not rush. Let the silence test you. Let the discomfort reveal your attachment. Then answer with precision or hold your peace. Let your choice be governed by reason, not fear. Let your character remain your first concern. A person who protects his character does not need endless defense because his life is the defense. His restraint is the defense. His fairness is the defense. His courage is the defense. His consistency is the defense. This is how respect is earned by those who are capable of it. And even where respect is not given, the soul can still remain free. Remember this before you sleep. The day does not ask whether you were understood perfectly. It asks whether you lived honestly. It does not ask whether every listener approved. It asks whether you acted with virtue. It does not ask whether you explained every choice. It asks whether your choices were just. That is the true measure. Everything else is noise. The crowd will pass. Their opinions will shift. Their curiosity will fade. Your conduct remains with you. Your habits become you. Your judgments shape the next day and the next and the next. Therefore, guard them. Guard your character with more seriousness than you guard your image. Protect the mind from needless defense. Protect the soul from servility. Protect your life from the foolish need to be fully explained in order to be worthy. Live like a person who has finally understood where power lies. It lies in your judgments. It lies in your refusal to surrender to panic. It lies in your willingness to be misunderstood for a time while remaining just. It lies in the quiet decision to answer only when reason calls. It lies in the daily return to self-command. Do this and you will stop begging for respect. You will begin to deserve it in the only way that matters, not through performance, not through noise, through character, through discipline. Through a mind that knows how to stand still when others demand a performance and how to speak only when speech serves virtue. That is enough. That has always been enough. Carry it into tomorrow. Carry it into every room. Carry it until the habit of over-explaining dies and the habit of self-rule takes its place. Then you will understand what it means to be at peace without needing the world to approve it. Number 2. Accept only your judgments and release every outside opinion. There is a quiet mistake that governs the lives of many people, and because it is quiet, it often survives for decades without being questioned. It is the habit of treating every opinion that reaches your ears as if it deserves a place inside your mind. You hear praise and you rise with it. You hear criticism and you sink beneath it. You hear gossip and your thoughts become restless. You hear approval and you begin to trust yourself more than you did a moment before. In every case, your peace has been placed into hands that were never meant to carry it. This is not the life of a disciplined mind. This is the life of a mind that has forgotten what truly belongs to it. You were not given authority over another person's judgment. You were given authority over your own. This difference is so simple that many people ignore it, yet it decides whether a person lives freely or remains a servant to every changing voice around them. The world will always contain opinions. Some will be fair, some will be careless, some will be thoughtful, some will be born from envy, impatience, or ignorance. You cannot prevent them from existing. You cannot command another mind to see clearly before it is ready. But you can refuse to let those opinions become the foundation of your own thinking. Look honestly at your last difficult day. Was your suffering created by events alone, or was it increased because you accepted another person's opinion without examining it first? Someone questioned your ability, and you immediately believed that perhaps they were right. Someone ignored your effort, and you concluded that your work had no value. Someone misunderstood your intention, and you judged yourself through their misunderstanding instead of through your own reason. In each of these moments, The wound did not enter your mind by force. It entered because you opened the gate without asking whether it deserved entry. The disciplined life begins when you become the guardian of that gate. Every opinion that arrives must first stand before reason. It must not be welcomed simply because it is spoken confidently. It must not be accepted because it comes from someone admired or feared. It must be examined. Is it true? Is it supported by evidence? Does it reveal a fault that belongs to me? Does it help me become more just, more disciplined, more courageous, or more wise? If the answer is yes, receive it with gratitude. If the answer is no, release it without resentment. This is not pride. This is proper judgment. Many people spend years trying to control how others see them, while neglecting the one judgment that actually shapes their character. They polish appearances while leaving their inner life neglected. They fear being thought weak more than they fear becoming weak. They fear looking foolish more than they fear acting foolishly. This confusion creates endless anxiety because appearances are never fully yours to command. The opinions of others rise and fall according to conditions you cannot direct. Your own judgment, however, can be trained every single day. Notice how quickly your mind forms conclusions. Someone speaks with a cold voice, and you assume they dislike you. A friend fails to reply, and you imagine rejection. A stranger succeeds where you struggled, and you judge yourself as inadequate. These judgments appear so quickly that they feel like facts, yet they are often nothing more than untested impressions. The disciplined mind does not reject every impression, but it refuses to bow before it immediately. It pauses. It asks whether the conclusion deserves belief. That pause is one of the greatest forms of inner strength because it places reason before reaction. Most suffering grows in the space between an event and the meaning you attach to it. The event may be small, but the judgment can make it enormous. A single comment becomes a week of resentment. One failure becomes a permanent identity. One disappointment becomes proof that life is unfair. Yet none of these conclusions are required by the event itself. They are choices made by an undisciplined mind. Once you understand this, you begin to see that your greatest work is not changing the world around you. Your greatest work is examining the judgments that shape your experience of that world. Each morning, before the demands of the day begin, give yourself a few quiet moments. Do not immediately seek news, messages, or opinions. Let your own reason speak first. Ask yourself what truly belongs to you today. Your choices belong to you. Your effort belongs to you. Your honesty belongs to you. Your attention belongs to you. The weather does not belong to you. The opinions of strangers do not belong to you. The moods of other people do not belong to you. Success itself is never fully yours because it depends upon conditions beyond your control. But the quality of your effort is always yours. Begin the day remembering this distinction, and much unnecessary anxiety will never take root. As the hours unfold, your discipline will be tested. Someone may question your decision. Someone may compare you unfavorably with another person. Someone may misunderstand your silence or your words. The old habit will invite you to measure yourself by their conclusion. Resist that invitation. Ask instead whether your own judgment remains aligned with virtue. If your action was honest, continue. If you discover genuine error, correct it without shame. A rational person does not fear correction because correction strengthens character. What must be avoided is surrendering your own judgment merely because another voice speaks loudly. There is a hidden danger in praise as well. Most people recognize the pain of criticism, but few recognize the temptation of admiration. Praise can become another chain if you begin depending upon it for confidence. When approval becomes your daily nourishment, you will soon fear losing it more than you desire doing what is right. Then your choices no longer serve virtue, they serve applause. This is a quiet corruption because it often appears pleasant. Yet the soul becomes just as dependent upon praise as it once was upon avoiding blame. Learn to receive praise with calm gratitude and criticism with calm examination. Neither should disturb your center, neither should decide your worth. The value of your character cannot be increased by admiration or reduced by insult. Character grows only through repeated choices guided by reason. This truth frees you from becoming intoxicated by compliments or wounded by careless words. There will be days when another person's opinion contains a painful truth. Welcome those moments without defensiveness. If someone reveals impatience in your conduct, dishonesty in your speech, or selfishness in your actions, do not reject the message simply because it is uncomfortable. The disciplined person seeks truth even when truth requires change. But notice the difference. You are not accepting the opinion because another person expressed it. You are accepting it because your own examination confirmed it. Reason remains the judge. Another person's words merely provide the opportunity for inspection. Many people never examine themselves because they remain occupied examining everyone else. They discuss the failures of friends, the flaws of leaders, the mistakes of strangers, while neglecting the one mind entrusted entirely to their care. This habit feels productive because it keeps the attention busy. In reality, it delays the work that matters. Every hour spent condemning another person's character is an hour not spent improving your own. When you find yourself thinking constantly about what someone else believes of you, gently return your attention inward. Ask a better question. Instead of asking whether they respect you, ask whether you have respected your own principles today. Instead of wondering whether they misunderstood you, ask whether you have judged today's events fairly. Instead of seeking reassurance from others, seek evidence that your own conduct has been honorable. These questions strengthen the part of the mind that can actually guide your life. Train yourself to recognize the difference between observation and judgment. You lose an opportunity. That is an observation. You conclude that you will never succeed. That is a judgment. Someone disagrees with you. That is an observation. You decide that you have no value. That is a judgment. Once you separate these two things, much confusion disappears. Events become simpler because you stop decorating them with unnecessary conclusions. This discipline requires patience because the mind has practiced careless judgment for many years. Do not expect perfect mastery in a single week. Instead, expect daily opportunities to notice your habits. Every time you interrupt an automatic conclusion and replace it with careful examination, you strengthen your rational faculty. Every time you refuse to let another person's opinion define your worth, you reclaim a portion of your freedom. At the end of each day, sit quietly before sleep and review your judgments rather than your achievements. Ask yourself where you accepted appearances too quickly. Ask where you assumed motives without evidence. Ask where you allowed praise to excite you beyond reason or criticism to disturb your peace. Then ask where you remained steady despite uncertainty. These moments reveal genuine progress because they show that your mind is becoming governed by discipline instead of impulse. Do not conduct this examination to accuse yourself. Conduct it to educate yourself. The purpose is not guilt, but improvement. If you discover a poor judgment, replace it with a better one before the next day begins. If you discover faithful reasoning, strengthen it through repetition. Character is built this way, one examined judgment after another, until reason becomes more familiar than impulse. As your practice deepens, you will notice something remarkable. The world itself has not changed. People still praise and criticize. Success still comes and goes. Circumstances still rise and fall beyond your command. Yet your experience of these things becomes steadier because you no longer surrender your peace to every passing opinion. Your attention returns again and again to the one place where genuine freedom has always existed, your own faculty of judgment. Do not waste another day trying to collect favorable opinions as though they were treasures. They fade as quickly as they appear. Today's admiration becomes tomorrow's indifference. Today's criticism is often forgotten by those who spoke it. To build your life upon such unstable ground is to guarantee continual unrest. Build instead upon disciplined judgment. Build upon truthful examination. Build upon the daily practice of asking whether your thoughts deserve your trust before allowing them to govern your actions. The person who governs judgment governs life itself. Every decision begins with a thought accepted as true. Every emotion follows the meaning assigned by the mind. Every habit grows from repeated judgments left unexamined. Therefore, guard this inner faculty with great care. Let reason become the measure by which every opinion is tested. Accept only those judgments that withstand honest examination. Release every opinion that cannot survive the light of truth. In doing so, you recover the freedom that was never hidden from you. It was waiting each day for the moment you chose to rule your own mind, instead of living under the rule of every passing voice. Number 3. Master your emotions before answering every careless accusation. A careless accusation reveals two people at once. It reveals the person who spoke without discipline, and it reveals the person who received those words. You cannot command the first. You are entirely responsible for the second. This is where your freedom begins. Most people believe they lose their peace because another person accused them unfairly. They look outward and point to the insult as the source of their suffering, yet the accusation enters the ears before it reaches the soul. Between those two moments stands your judgment. If your judgment remains disciplined, the accusation cannot govern your mind. If your judgment surrenders itself to impulse, then you become the author of your own disturbance. Many people never notice how quickly this surrender happens. A harsh sentence is spoken. Before reason has time to examine it, anger has already taken command. The face tightens, the heart races, the mind begins preparing arguments before it has even understood the situation. Hours later, the body is still carrying a conflict that lasted only moments. Days later, the memory continues repeating itself as though the event were happening again. The original accusation has ended, but your own thinking continues the punishment. This is how an undisciplined mind multiplies suffering long after the event has passed. You must understand that emotion itself is not your enemy. The first movement of the mind often arrives before deliberate choice. Surprise, disappointment, and the first stirrings of anger may appear naturally. What matters is what follows. Do you immediately hand authority to that emotion, or do you allow reason to examine what has appeared? A disciplined person does not pretend that emotion never arises. A disciplined person refuses to let emotion become the ruler of action. Think about how often you have answered too quickly. A single accusation was met with 10 unnecessary words. A careless remark became a lasting argument. A brief misunderstanding grew into broken trust because neither person paused long enough to examine what truly happened. The greatest damage was not caused by the original words. It was created by reactions that were never inspected before they were expressed. Your first responsibility is not defending your reputation. Your first responsibility is protecting your judgment. Reputation belongs partly to others because it lives within their opinions. Judgment belongs entirely to you because it directs your choices. If you lose command of your own judgment while trying to protect your image, you have exchanged something priceless for something uncertain. When another person speaks unfairly, the mind immediately whispers dangerous conclusions. They have insulted me. They must be defeated. I cannot allow this to stand. They should suffer for what they said. Notice how quickly these thoughts appear. None of them have been tested. None of them have been examined. They present themselves as certainty while reason has not yet spoken. This is the moment where self-governance either begins or disappears. The disciplined response begins with deliberate stillness, not the stillness of fear, not the silence of weakness, the stillness of a mind refusing to become the servant of impulse. Before answering anyone else, answer yourself. Ask what actually happened. Separate the words that were spoken from the story your imagination has already begun creating. Often you will discover that your suffering comes less from the accusation itself and more from the meaning you immediately assigned to it. Some accusations contain no truth at all. Others contain a small truth hidden beneath poor delivery. The wise person does not reject or accept either one immediately. Every accusation must first pass through examination. Ask whether the criticism points toward a genuine fault in your conduct. If it does, gratitude is more useful than resentment because correction strengthens character. If the accusation is false, anger serves no purpose because reality remains unchanged by another person's misunderstanding. Many people believe that remaining calm means allowing injustice to continue without response. This is not discipline, this is confusion. There are moments when reason calls for a clear answer. There are moments when duty requires correction. There are moments when silence would permit unnecessary harm. Yet the value of your response depends entirely upon the condition of your mind before you speak. A response guided by reason serves justice. A response driven by wounded pride serves only emotion. Notice how easily pride disguises itself as righteousness. You convince yourself that you are defending truth when you are actually defending vanity. You believe you are protecting justice when you are protecting your desire to appear flawless. Honest self-examination exposes this deception. Ask yourself whether your response seeks clarity or victory. One serves virtue, the other serves the ego. Begin preparing before conflict arrives. Every morning remind yourself that careless words are part of human life. People become tired. People become impatient. People speak without reflection. People judge before understanding. None of this should surprise you because human beings often act without governing their own minds. Expecting perfect conduct from everyone guarantees continual disappointment. Expecting human weakness prepares you to meet it with discipline instead of shock. This preparation does not make you suspicious of others. It makes you realistic. You stop demanding that the world behave according to your preferences. Instead, you train yourself to respond according to your principles. Your peace no longer depends upon perfect treatment. It depends upon faithful self-government. Throughout the day, guard the space between hearing and responding. This brief interval may appear insignificant, yet it contains the difference between slavery and freedom. A mind that reacts immediately is controlled by circumstances. A mind that pauses has already reclaimed authority over itself. Even a single slow breath can interrupt the momentum of anger long enough for reason to regain its rightful place. Within that pause, ask simple questions. Is this accusation true? Is any part of it useful? Does this moment require speech or restraint? Will my next sentence improve the situation or merely satisfy my desire to strike back? These questions redirect attention from emotion toward judgment. Once reason begins asking questions, impulse loses much of its power. Be especially careful when you feel certain that you are entirely right. Complete certainty often closes the door to learning. Even unfair criticism may reveal habits you have overlooked. Perhaps your intention was honorable while your manner was careless. Perhaps your action was correct while your timing created confusion. Humility allows examination without surrendering self-respect. A disciplined mind welcomes opportunities to improve because improvement is always within its control. There will also be moments when another person simply wishes to provoke you. They are not searching for truth. They are searching for reaction. If you surrender your peace to such a person, You have accepted their invitation to abandon reason. Refuse that invitation, not through contempt, not through coldness, simply by remaining faithful to your own principles. Another person's lack of discipline never excuses the abandonment of your own. Observe how quickly anger narrows perception. Once anger takes command, every sentence appears hostile, every gesture seems offensive, every memory becomes evidence supporting resentment. The mind begins collecting reasons to remain disturbed. This habit strengthens itself with repetition until irritation becomes a permanent companion. Break this pattern by refusing to gather fuel for unnecessary conflict. Let each moment stand on its own instead of attaching it to every previous disappointment. Practice directing your attention toward what remains within your authority. You cannot erase words already spoken. You cannot rewrite another person's judgment. You cannot control whether they admit error. You can govern your tone. You can govern your patience. You can govern your willingness to remain truthful without becoming hostile. These are sufficient responsibilities for one person. Anything beyond them belongs elsewhere. During difficult conversations, notice the condition of your body. Tension often announces the arrival of unexamined emotion before the mind recognizes it. Relax your breathing. Soften unnecessary strain. Stand firmly without becoming rigid. These simple actions remind the mind that urgency is often imagined. A calm body assists a calm judgment. Do not mistake emotional intensity for moral strength. Raising your voice does not strengthen your argument. Speaking faster does not improve your reasoning. Displaying outrage does not prove innocence. Virtue requires neither performance nor spectacle. Truth remains true, whether spoken loudly or quietly. Therefore, allow your conduct to reflect steadiness rather than agitation. At the end of every challenging encounter, resist the temptation to replay the conversation endlessly. Many people leave the conflict physically while carrying it mentally for the remainder of the day. They invent better answers. They imagine different outcomes. They continue arguing with someone who is no longer present. In doing so, they surrender countless peaceful moments to events that cannot be changed. Once your duty within the conversation has ended, release what no longer belongs to you. Each evening, conduct a careful examination of your responses rather than the behavior of others. Ask yourself where emotion interrupted reason. Ask where patience preserved clarity. Ask where pride disguised itself as justice. Ask whether your words reflected the character you seek to build. This examination is not intended to produce regret. It exists to refine judgment before another day begins. When you discover failure, do not become discouraged. Every honest observation creates the possibility of better action tomorrow. The only lasting failure is refusing to examine yourself because examination feels uncomfortable. Growth belongs to those willing to face their own habits without excuse. Remember that accusations often test the quality of your character more than the accuracy of another person's words. Anyone can remain pleasant when praised. Anyone can appear composed when circumstances are easy. The true measure of discipline appears when unfairness enters the room. At that moment, your principles either guide your conduct or reveal themselves to be only pleasant ideas admired in peaceful times. There is great freedom in no longer allowing every careless statement to determine the condition of your inner life. The world continues speaking as it always has. Some voices remain thoughtful, others remain reckless, yet your peace becomes less dependent upon them because it now rests upon something stronger. It rests upon the daily habit of examining your own judgments before obeying them. When this practice becomes consistent, your relationships begin to change. Conversations become clearer because you are no longer listening through wounded pride. Conflicts become shorter because you refuse to multiply them with unnecessary reactions. Decisions become steadier because they are guided by reason rather than emotional momentum. Even when disagreement remains, your inner order remains intact. Do not seek a life where nobody accuses you unfairly. Such a life has never existed. Seek instead a mind that cannot be ruled by careless words. This goal remains available every single day because it depends entirely upon your own discipline. Every accusation becomes another opportunity to strengthen patience. Every misunderstanding becomes another opportunity to practice careful judgment. Every difficult encounter becomes another opportunity to choose virtue over impulse. The greatest victory is not proving another person wrong. The greatest victory is refusing to become the kind of person who abandons wisdom whenever challenged. Protect this victory with constant attention. Guard your judgment more carefully than your reputation. Let reason speak before emotion. Let examination come before response. Let character remain stronger than anger. Then no careless accusation will possess the power to govern your life, because the authority over your mind will remain exactly where it has always belonged, within your own disciplined choice. Number 4. Choose silence whenever explanation weakens your inner authority. There is a moment that arrives quietly in almost every difficult conversation. It is the moment when your mind urges you to keep speaking long after reason has already finished. You have already given a truthful answer, yet you continue explaining. You repeat yourself with different words. You search for better phrases. You hope that one more sentence will finally remove every doubt from the other person's mind. Without noticing it, you stop serving truth and begin serving the desire to control another person's judgment. At that very moment, your inner authority begins to weaken, not because someone challenged you, but because you abandoned your own discipline. The untrained mind believes that every misunderstanding must be corrected immediately. It imagines that silence is dangerous because silence leaves room for another person's opinion. Yet another person's opinion has never belonged to you. Their interpretation is shaped by their own habits, experiences, and judgments. You may offer clarity where it serves reason, but you cannot force understanding into another mind. The attempt to do so only distracts you from the one responsibility that has always remained yours: the governance of your own thoughts and actions. Many people mistake endless explanation for honesty. They believe that if they continue speaking long enough, they will eventually earn complete acceptance. Yet honesty requires only truthfulness. It does not require endless persuasion. Once your duty to speak truth has been fulfilled, your responsibility ends. What another person chooses to believe afterward belongs to their own faculty of judgment. If you continue speaking only because you fear being misunderstood, then fear has quietly replaced reason as the guide of your speech. Observe how often this pattern appears throughout ordinary life. You decline an invitation because another responsibility deserves your attention. Instead of giving a simple answer, you begin constructing an elaborate defense. You make your decision appear smaller than it truly is, because you hope the other person will approve. You choose a path that aligns with your principles, yet when someone questions it, you rush to justify every detail, as though your conscience were insufficient. In each of these moments, you surrender confidence in your own judgment and seek permission from minds you cannot govern. This habit is not created in a single day. It grows slowly through repeated attachment to approval. The mind becomes accustomed to measuring its peace by the reactions of others. When approval appears, confidence rises. When doubt appears, confidence falls. Eventually, your emotional balance depends upon conditions that remain forever beyond your authority. Such a life cannot remain steady because it is built upon changing opinions rather than enduring principles. A disciplined mind follows a different path. It first asks whether its own action has been examined honestly. Was the decision just? Was it guided by reason rather than impulse? Did it preserve integrity? If these questions receive an honest answer, then unnecessary explanation loses its attraction. Confidence no longer comes from convincing everyone else. Confidence comes from knowing that your conduct has been measured against virtue before it was measured against public opinion. Silence often appears uncomfortable because it removes the illusion of control. Words create the feeling that something is still being accomplished. They give the impression that if you continue speaking, you may finally produce the exact response needed to erase every misunderstanding. Yet many conversations reveal the opposite. The more desperately one person explains, the less convincing they become. Their words begin serving anxiety rather than truth. Their speech becomes an attempt to manage outcomes that cannot be managed. The purpose of disciplined silence is not withdrawal from responsibility. It is the refusal to waste strength pursuing what reason cannot command. Silence becomes virtuous only when it protects clear judgment. It is not an escape from duty. It is the deliberate decision to stop feeding unnecessary conflict once your obligation has been fulfilled. Every morning, prepare yourself for this practice before the first conversation begins. Sit quietly and remind yourself that you will meet people with different expectations, different assumptions, and different conclusions. Some will understand your intentions, others will not. Some will judge fairly, others will judge carelessly. None of these responses belong to your authority. Your task is much simpler. You are responsible for acting honorably and speaking truthfully whenever speech serves reason. Beyond that point, release your grasp upon the outcome. As the day unfolds, notice the first moment when you feel compelled to over-explain. That feeling deserves examination. Ask yourself what you are truly seeking. Are you providing information that is genuinely necessary, or are you attempting to remove every possibility of disagreement? The first serves wisdom, the second serves insecurity. Learning to distinguish between them requires careful attention because the desire for approval often disguises itself as helpfulness. There are conversations where additional explanation serves justice. There are situations where another person lacks important information and your words can genuinely improve understanding. Speak fully in such moments because reason requires it. Yet there are also conversations where no amount of explanation will satisfy the listener. Their judgment has already been formed. Their purpose is no longer understanding but resistance. Continuing to argue under these conditions does not strengthen truth. It merely exhausts your peace. You must also examine your attachment to being believed. The longing to be understood is natural, yet allowing that longing to govern your choices leads to continual frustration. Many truthful people have been doubted. Many careful decisions have been criticized. Many honorable actions have been misunderstood. Reality has never promised immediate recognition. Your responsibility is not to control the speed at which others discover truth. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to it, whether recognition arrives or not. The disciplined person never measures the value of an action by the applause that follows. If a choice was made according to reason, its worth remains intact even when others fail to appreciate it. This understanding creates remarkable stability because your peace no longer rises and falls with public agreement. It rests upon something far more reliable, the condition of your own character. Watch the mind carefully after difficult conversations. It often continues speaking long after the conversation has ended. You replay every sentence. You imagine better explanations. You create imaginary dialogues where everyone finally understands your intentions. Hours pass while your attention remains imprisoned by an event that can no longer be changed. This hidden conversation deserves the same discipline as spoken words. Ask yourself whether these repeated thoughts improve your character or merely prolong attachment to an outcome already beyond your control. One of the greatest exercises in self-governance is learning to leave a completed conversation behind. Once your duty has ended, let the moment belong to the past. Do not carry it into the next hour. Do not burden the evening with arguments that exist only within memory. Every unnecessary repetition strengthens attachment to what cannot be altered. Every deliberate return to the present strengthens freedom. Be especially cautious when speaking from wounded pride. Pride always demands another explanation because it cannot tolerate uncertainty. It believes that every doubt threatens personal worth. Reason understands something different. Your worth does not depend upon universal agreement. Character is not diminished because another mind refuses to recognize it. Virtue remains complete even when misunderstood. This is why inner authority must always stand above social approval. Authority over yourself means that your principles decide your conduct before public opinion has any opportunity to influence it. When your decisions are rooted in reason, your speech becomes measured rather than anxious. You answer what deserves an answer. You leave untouched what belongs outside your responsibility. There will be moments when silence feels costly. Someone may mistake your restraint for weakness. Another person may assume guilt because you refuse endless argument. Accept these possibilities without bitterness. Another person's conclusion does not possess the power to alter your character. Their interpretation belongs to them. Your discipline belongs to you. Never exchange something firmly within your authority for something permanently outside it. This practice also transforms your relationships. Conversations become more thoughtful because you are no longer speaking merely to reduce discomfort. You begin listening with greater attention because your mind is no longer occupied preparing endless defenses. Others may even become more willing to listen because your words are guided by necessity rather than urgency. Speech gains weight when it is used carefully instead of constantly. Throughout the day, create small opportunities to strengthen this discipline. When asked a simple question, answer simply. Resist the temptation to decorate every response with unnecessary qualifications. If your answer is truthful and sufficient, allow it to remain complete. Notice the discomfort that follows. Observe it without immediately obeying it. You are training your mind to tolerate uncertainty without surrendering its composure. Another valuable practice is to examine your motives before every important conversation. Ask yourself what outcome you seek. If your purpose is to express truth, your speech will likely remain calm. If your purpose is to guarantee approval, anxiety will quietly shape every sentence. The difference may not be visible to others at first, but it will certainly be felt within your own mind. One path produces steadiness, the other produces endless dependence upon reactions you cannot command. Each evening, return to yourself with complete honesty. Review the conversations that challenged you most. Notice where you spoke because wisdom required speech. Notice where fear disguised itself as explanation. Do not condemn yourself for these discoveries. Simply observe them with accuracy. The disciplined life advances through clear observation, followed by deliberate correction. Every honest review prepares you to respond more wisely tomorrow. Ask yourself whether silence would have preserved greater order in any of those moments. Consider whether additional words changed anything beyond increasing your own agitation. Learn from these reflections without becoming trapped by regret. Yesterday exists only as instruction. Today remains the place where virtue can still be practiced. Over time, you will notice a quiet transformation. You no longer feel responsible for controlling every conversation. You no longer believe that peace depends upon convincing everyone around you. Your confidence begins arising from disciplined conduct rather than successful persuasion. This confidence is calm because it does not require constant confirmation. It rests securely upon reason instead of applause. Silence then becomes something entirely different from what it once seemed. It is no longer an empty space waiting to be filled. It becomes an expression of self-command. It demonstrates that your mind does not panic when certainty is absent. It reveals that your thoughts answer first to reason before they answer to pressure. It protects your attention from becoming scattered among countless opinions that never belonged to your care. Do not seek silence simply because it appears powerful. Seek it because it preserves fidelity to what lies within your authority. Speak whenever justice, kindness, or duty truly require speech. Remain silent whenever additional explanation serves only fear, vanity, or the desire to govern another person's judgment. This distinction demands continual practice, yet every effort strengthens the part of you that no circumstance can control. The world will continue asking for explanations beyond what reason requires. Some people will always want more certainty than you can honestly provide. Others will continue interpreting your actions according to their own habits rather than your intentions. Let these realities remind you of the boundary between your responsibility and theirs. Cross that boundary no longer. Carry this discipline into every conversation, every disagreement, and every ordinary exchange. Let your words arise from thoughtful judgment rather than restless emotion. Let your silence protect your inner order whenever speech would only weaken it. In doing so, you discover that genuine authority is never created by speaking more. It is created by governing yourself so completely that every word and every silence are chosen by reason alone. When reason becomes the master of your speech, no misunderstanding can steal the stability of your mind, because your peace will no longer depend upon being endlessly explained. Number 5. Discipline your desires until approval loses all power. There is a desire that quietly governs countless lives without ever announcing itself. It does not arrive wearing the appearance of greed or ambition. It often disguises itself as kindness, cooperation, or the wish to be understood. Yet beneath these respectable appearances lies a powerful craving. It is the desire to be approved by other people. Many never question this desire because they mistake it for something harmless. They believe it simply makes them considerate. In truth, when left undisciplined, it becomes a hidden master that directs decisions, weakens judgment, and slowly separates a person from the life reason demands. Look carefully at your own conduct. How many choices were truly your own? How many words were spoken because they reflected honest judgment? And how many were chosen because you hoped someone would respond with approval? Perhaps you accepted responsibilities you knew you should decline. Perhaps you remained silent when justice required speech. Perhaps you agreed with opinions you never believed because disagreement felt too costly. These moments may appear small, yet they reveal something important. Your suffering was not created by another person's expectations. It was created by your own attachment to satisfying them. A disciplined life begins by asking an uncomfortable question. What do you actually desire? Many people answer too quickly. They say they desire peace, wisdom, or freedom, yet their daily conduct reveals something different. They sacrifice peace to gain praise. They abandon wisdom to avoid criticism. They surrender freedom for acceptance. Their actions expose desires their words refuse to admit. This is why honest self-examination must always come before self-improvement. You cannot govern desires that remain hidden from your own awareness. Every desire carries consequences. When you desire only what belongs within your own authority, your mind becomes steady because fulfillment depends upon your own discipline. When you desire what belongs to other people, your life becomes uncertain because satisfaction depends upon conditions you can never command. Approval belongs entirely to another person's judgment. You may influence it through honorable conduct, but you can never possess it by right. Therefore, anyone who depends upon approval for peace has chosen to build their inner life upon unstable ground. Observe how quickly this dependence shapes ordinary moments. You prepare to express an honest opinion, yet before speaking you imagine how others might respond. You begin a task with sincere effort, then become distracted, wondering whether anyone will notice. You make a difficult decision, then spend the rest of the day waiting for reassurance that you chose correctly. In every case, your attention has left the place where action is possible and settled upon outcomes that cannot be guaranteed. This movement of the mind deserves careful examination. It is not approval itself that creates weakness. It is the belief that approval is necessary for contentment. The moment you decide that another person's acceptance is required before you can feel secure, you have surrendered authority over your emotional life. You have quietly declared that your peace will now depend upon circumstances outside your governance. No disciplined person can willingly accept such an arrangement. Reason asks you to desire differently. Instead of desiring admiration, desire integrity. Instead of seeking popularity, seek sound judgment. Instead of longing to appear virtuous, long to become virtuous. These desires remain within your authority because they depend upon your own choices rather than the opinions of others. They create stability because they cannot be stolen by changing moods or passing criticism. Begin each morning by examining the desires you carry into the day. Before meeting anyone else, meet yourself honestly. Ask what you hope to gain from the hours ahead. If you discover that you are secretly hoping to impress, to receive praise, or to avoid disapproval at all costs, do not ignore these discoveries. Bring them into the light of reason. Remind yourself that no amount of admiration can improve your character, and no amount of criticism can diminish virtue freely chosen. Then establish a different intention. Tell yourself that your aim today is not to collect approval, but to perform each duty with honesty and discipline. Whether others recognize your effort is secondary, whether your own conduct remains faithful to reason is primary. This single change of intention transforms the entire direction of the day because it places your attention where genuine control exists. As you move through ordinary responsibilities, continually notice where desire begins pulling your judgment away from reason. Someone praises your work and your mind immediately begins craving more recognition. Someone questions your decision and you suddenly feel compelled to abandon your original judgment. These moments reveal that desire is attempting to become your master. Pause before obeying it. Ask yourself whether your next action is guided by virtue or by the hunger to be accepted. Do not assume that approval always appears pleasant. Sometimes it disguises itself as the fear of rejection. The mind imagines losing respect, disappointing others, or standing alone. These fears often persuade people to betray their own principles long before any real danger appears. They surrender to imagined consequences instead of remaining faithful to what reason requires. Such surrender never produces lasting peace because the mind learns that every future decision must also satisfy the same fear. A disciplined person accepts that disapproval is sometimes the natural companion of honest action. There will be moments when acting justly disappoints someone. There will be occasions when truth unsettles those who prefer comfort. There will be times when refusing what is wrong invites criticism from those who benefit from it. If your desire for approval remains stronger than your commitment to virtue, you will abandon reason at precisely the moment it is needed most. This is why discipline of desire cannot remain an abstract idea. It must become daily practice. Throughout the day, deliberately notice every moment when your emotional state rises or falls according to another person's reaction. Do not condemn yourself for these observations. Simply acknowledge them without excuse. Awareness is the beginning of freedom because hidden desires lose much of their influence once clearly recognized. Practice choosing small acts of independence from approval. Speak truthfully without waiting to see whether everyone agrees. Complete good work even when recognition is unlikely. Perform acts of kindness without expecting gratitude. Allow your conscience rather than applause to become the measure of success. These exercises strengthen the mind because they teach it to remain satisfied by right action itself. There is another discipline equally important. Learn to receive approval without becoming attached to it. Appreciation from others is not something to reject. Gratitude may be accepted with humility. The danger begins only when praise becomes necessary. Once your happiness depends upon hearing favorable words, your peace becomes fragile because praise cannot be commanded. Receive appreciation calmly, then return your attention immediately to the quality of your own conduct. Notice how desire often disguises itself through comparison. You observe another person's success and immediately judge your own life as insufficient. You hear another person celebrated and begin questioning your own worth. Yet comparison never arises from reason. It arises from desire seeking external confirmation. The disciplined mind refuses this habit because another person's path reveals nothing certain about your own obligations. Your duty is not to compete for admiration. Your duty is to govern your own character. Whenever comparison appears, redirect your attention toward examination rather than competition. Ask whether today's actions reflected justice, self-restraint, courage, and practical wisdom. These questions strengthen the part of the mind that remains under your authority. Questions about who received more recognition or greater approval only deepen attachment to conditions beyond your reach. Another powerful exercise is voluntary restraint. Choose opportunities where you deliberately perform worthy actions without announcing them. Resist the urge to reveal every accomplishment. Let your efforts exist without immediate acknowledgement. At first, this may feel uncomfortable because the mind has grown accustomed to seeking visible reward. Remain with that discomfort instead of escaping it. You are teaching yourself that virtue possesses value even when witnessed only by your own conscience. You will discover that much unnecessary speech is driven by the desire for approval. People explain accomplishments, hoping to be admired. They repeat stories, seeking validation. They defend every decision because they fear losing respect. Examine your own conversations carefully. Ask whether your words arise from usefulness or from hidden craving. This examination gradually purifies speech because it removes motives that do not belong to reason. There will be days when approval disappears entirely. Your effort may go unnoticed. Your intentions may be misunderstood. Your sacrifices may receive no acknowledgement. Prepare yourself for these days before they arrive. They are not signs that virtue has failed. They are opportunities to prove whether your commitment truly rests upon principle or merely upon recognition. When disappointment appears, do not immediately accuse circumstances. Look inward first. Ask whether suffering has arisen because something valuable was lost or because an expectation was frustrated. Very often the pain comes not from reality itself, but from demanding rewards that were never promised. Once this becomes clear, many complaints lose their foundation. Every evening, conduct a careful examination of your desires. Do not ask first whether others respected you. Ask whether you respected reason. Do not ask whether your efforts received praise. Ask whether your actions deserved respect, regardless of recognition. Review each significant decision. Notice where approval quietly influenced your judgment. Notice where principle remains stronger than popularity. These reflections shape tomorrow's character because they reveal the direction your desires are truly taking. If you discover that approval governed many choices, do not respond with discouragement. Respond with renewed discipline. Habits formed over many years are not abandoned through a single realization. They are weakened through repeated practice. Each time you choose virtue over admiration, desire loses part of its authority. Each time you remain faithful to reason despite criticism, inner freedom grows stronger. Understand that freedom is not the absence of relationships or responsibilities. Freedom is the condition of a soul that no longer requires constant permission to act honorably. Such a person remains courteous without becoming dependent. They remain compassionate without surrendering judgment. They value others without becoming imprisoned by their opinions. This balance is possible because desire has been brought under the guidance of reason. Eventually you will notice that approval no longer produces the excitement it once did, and criticism no longer creates the same disturbance. This change does not happen because you have become indifferent to people. It happens because you have learned to place people in their proper place. They deserve fairness, respect, and goodwill. They do not deserve authority over your conscience. As this discipline matures, your decisions become simpler. You stop asking what response will earn the greatest approval. You begin asking what action reflects the highest virtue. This single question clears away countless unnecessary conflicts because it directs attention toward what remains permanently within your control. Do not expect this path to remove every challenge. The desire for approval may return many times, especially during moments of uncertainty. Meet it each time with patient examination rather than immediate obedience. Remember that every desire must answer to reason before it deserves your loyalty. If it leads you away from integrity, it cannot be trusted regardless of how pleasant it appears. Carry this discipline into every ordinary moment. Let your work be guided by excellence rather than recognition. Let your conversations be guided by truth rather than acceptance. Let your decisions be guided by conscience rather than applause. Allow your peace to arise from the knowledge that your character remains faithful to what is right. When desire is finally disciplined, approval loses its power to rule you. It may still arrive, and when it does, you may receive it with quiet gratitude. It may also disappear, and when it does, your peace remains untouched. You no longer live according to changing opinions, but according to enduring principles. Your mind becomes steadier because it seeks only what reason can honestly obtain. This is the freedom available to every disciplined soul, not the freedom of controlling other people, but the far greater freedom of no longer needing their approval to remain faithful to virtue. Number 6. Examine your motives before speaking another unnecessary justification. Before another word leaves your mouth, ask yourself a question that most people never consider. Why am I about to speak? Not what am I going to say, but why do I feel compelled to say it? This single question reaches beneath your words and exposes the hidden movements of your mind. It is rarely the true beginning of action. Long before the tongue begins to move, the judgment has already been accepted, the desire has already been formed, and the motive has already chosen its direction. If you never examine that hidden beginning, your words will continue serving impulses that reason never approved. Many people believe they speak because circumstances require it. In reality, they often speak because their emotions demand relief. They explain themselves because uncertainty makes them uncomfortable. They defend ordinary decisions because they fear being misunderstood. They justify simple choices because they imagine that silence will be mistaken for weakness. They never pause long enough to ask whether their words are serving truth or merely protecting pride. This is why unnecessary justification has become such a common habit. It is not created by wisdom. It is created by motives that remain hidden from honest examination. Look carefully at your own conversations. How many times have you finished speaking only to realize that nothing meaningful was accomplished? The other person remained unconvinced. Your own mind became more restless. The conversation grew longer while clarity became smaller. This happens because words detached from disciplined motives lose their proper purpose. Speech exists to communicate what reason judges necessary. When speech becomes a tool for calming insecurity, it no longer strengthens character. It quietly weakens it. The disciplined life requires that every important action begin with inward inspection. Before correcting another person, examine yourself. Before defending your decision, examine yourself. Before adding another explanation, examine yourself. This order matters because the mind easily notices faults outside while remaining blind to motives within. You become highly skilled at evaluating another person's tone while ignoring the fear directing your own words. Such blindness keeps the soul divided because it seeks correction everywhere except where correction is most needed. There is a powerful difference between speaking from duty and speaking from discomfort. Duty speaks because reason recognizes genuine necessity. Discomfort speaks because emotion seeks immediate relief. Outwardly, these two forms of speech may sound almost identical. Both may use calm words. Both may appear thoughtful, yet inwardly they arise from completely different sources. One strengthens your character because it obeys principle. The other weakens your discipline because it obeys anxiety. This distinction becomes visible only through regular examination. Whenever you feel the urge to justify yourself, stop for a brief moment. Do not suppress your thoughts. Observe them. Ask what outcome you secretly desire. Are you hoping to communicate useful truth, or are you trying to remove another person's disappointment? Are you offering information that serves the situation, or are you attempting to escape the discomfort of not being fully accepted? These questions require courage because they expose motives that pride would rather keep hidden. The mind often disguises insecurity beneath respectable language. It tells you that you are simply being thorough. It insists that more explanation will certainly improve understanding. Sometimes this is true, often it is not. There comes a point when additional words no longer increase clarity. They merely reveal that you have become attached to controlling another person's judgment. At that point, your motive has quietly shifted away from virtue and toward approval. Reason never demands control over another person's conclusions. Reason asks only that you act honestly, speak truthfully, and fulfill your responsibilities. Whether another person fully accepts your explanation belongs to their own faculty of judgment. The moment you forget this distinction, unnecessary speech begins multiplying because you are attempting to govern something that has never belonged to your authority. Notice how much energy is lost through this habit. Entire afternoons disappear because the mind keeps replaying conversations. You search for stronger arguments. You imagine saying one more sentence that would finally persuade everyone. Yet no amount of mental rehearsal can command another person's understanding. Your effort becomes trapped inside an impossible task. The wiser path is not better persuasion but better examination of your own motives before speech begins. Every morning, prepare yourself for this practice before entering the demands of the day. Sit quietly for a few moments and remind yourself that many opportunities to justify yourself will appear. Someone may question your choices. Someone may misunderstand your intentions. Someone may disagree with your priorities. These events should not surprise you because human beings naturally differ in judgment. Resolve before the day begins that you will not allow every disagreement to become an invitation for endless explanation. Carry one simple discipline with you throughout the day. Whenever you feel urgency rising before you speak, become curious about that urgency. Urgency often signals that emotion has moved ahead of reason. The calm mind rarely feels compelled to explain itself immediately. It first examines the situation. It asks what duty requires. It measures the value of silence and the value of speech. Only then does it choose. There will be moments when careful explanation is entirely appropriate. A responsibility may require detailed communication. A misunderstanding may create genuine harm if left uncorrected. A person acting in good faith may need greater clarity. In such cases, speak willingly and completely. The issue is never the number of words. The issue is always the motive directing them. When speech arises from reason, even many words remain disciplined. When speech arises from fear, even a few unnecessary sentences reveal inner disorder. One of the greatest obstacles to self-government is the belief that being misunderstood is unbearable. This belief silently governs countless decisions. People change their language, their actions, and sometimes even their principles simply to avoid temporary misunderstanding. Yet misunderstanding itself does not damage character, only abandoning virtue damages character. Once this becomes clear, the pressure to justify every decision begins to dissolve. Ask yourself another difficult question. What do you believe will happen if another person fails to understand you completely? Many fears will appear. You may imagine rejection. You may imagine losing respect. You may imagine conflict or disappointment. Examine each fear carefully. Which of these outcomes truly lies within your authority? None of them. Another person's response remains their responsibility. Your responsibility ends with acting honorably and speaking according to reason. This understanding changes the purpose of conversation itself. Instead of entering discussions seeking complete agreement, you begin entering them seeking faithful conduct. You become less concerned with managing impressions and more concerned with preserving integrity. Ironically, this often makes your words clearer because they are no longer burdened by hidden motives. Throughout the day, observe how quickly the mind creates stories about what others think. Someone pauses before answering, and you assume they doubt you. Someone appears distracted, and you conclude they disapprove of your decision. Immediately, you begin preparing explanations for judgments that may not even exist. Notice how much unnecessary speech grows from imagined opinions rather than actual circumstances. The disciplined mind refuses to answer assumptions before they become realities. Another useful practice is learning to tolerate brief uncertainty. Not every conversation requires immediate closure. Not every silence demands another sentence. There are moments when allowing space is wiser than filling it. A mind trained in patience does not rush to rescue itself from every pause. It understands that truth does not become stronger merely because it is repeated. Examine also the desire to appear reasonable at all times. This desire often hides beneath endless justification. You want everyone to recognize that your motives were pure and your decisions carefully considered. Yet even this seemingly honorable wish can become excessive when it depends upon universal recognition. Your task is not to convince every observer of your reasonableness. Your task is to remain reasonable regardless of whether others notice. Practice simplifying your speech. Give the truthful answer that the situation requires, then stop. Observe the impulse that immediately urges you to continue. Instead of obeying it, examine it. What is it asking for? More often than not, it seeks emotional comfort rather than practical necessity. Every time you resist this impulse through deliberate judgment, your capacity for self-command grows stronger. Do not confuse restraint with coldness. A disciplined person remains capable of warmth, kindness, and generosity. The difference is that these qualities arise from deliberate choice rather than emotional dependence. Their speech is measured because it serves the moment instead of serving hidden cravings. They listen carefully because they are not constantly occupied preparing another defense. As evening arrives, return your attention inward. Review the conversations of the day with complete honesty. Do not judge whether people agreed with you. That question belongs outside your authority. Instead, ask whether your motives remained faithful to reason. Notice where insecurity quietly entered your speech. Notice where patience prevented unnecessary explanation. Notice where silence protected inner order more effectively than additional words could have done. When you discover moments of weakness, receive them as instruction rather than condemnation. Self-examination loses its value the moment it becomes self-punishment. The purpose is refinement, not shame. Every honest observation becomes material for tomorrow's discipline. Character is shaped through repeated correction guided by reason. There will always be opportunities to justify yourself. Human beings will continue asking questions. They will continue misunderstanding, disagreeing, and interpreting your actions according to their own perspectives. None of these realities can be eliminated. What can be transformed is the condition of your own mind when facing them. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin responding deliberately. Instead of obeying hidden motives, you place every impulse beneath careful examination. As this practice becomes familiar, your conversations gradually change. They become quieter without becoming weaker. They become clearer because unnecessary motives no longer cloud your words. You discover that much of what once seemed essential to say was never required by reason. It was required only by fear seeking reassurance. Eventually, another change appears. You stop measuring successful conversations by the amount of agreement they produce. You begin measuring them by the quality of your own conduct. Did you remain truthful? Did you remain just? Did you allow reason to govern your speech from beginning to end? These questions strengthen the only standard that can never be taken from you. The greatest transformation does not occur in the conversation itself. It occurs beforehand, in the silent moment when you choose to examine your motive before opening your mouth. That unseen victory prevents countless unnecessary conflicts because it removes the hidden causes before they become spoken consequences. It teaches the mind that every impulse deserves examination before receiving obedience. Carry this discipline into every relationship and every ordinary exchange. Let each sentence pass through the gate of honest self-examination before entering the world. Let your motives become as disciplined as your actions. Let your words arise only after reason has approved their purpose. When this becomes your habit, unnecessary justification gradually disappears, not because you force yourself into silence, but because your inner life has become so well governed that only what serves virtue finds its way into speech. The authority you once sought through endless explanation now grows naturally from disciplined judgment, and your peace remains rooted where it has always belonged, within the careful governance of your own mind. Number 7. Strengthen your virtue through steady actions instead of words. There is a quiet temptation that follows nearly every sincere intention. It whispers that speaking about virtue is almost the same as living it. It persuades you that explaining your values, declaring your principles, and describing the person you hope to become are meaningful substitutes for disciplined action. This temptation is subtle because words create the feeling of progress. They allow the mind to experience satisfaction before genuine effort has begun. Yet character is never transformed by promises alone. Character changes only when reason repeatedly governs action in the ordinary moments where no audience is watching and no praise is expected. Many people know what is right. They can describe patience with impressive clarity. They can explain justice, self-restraint, honesty, and courage with confidence. They can recognize weakness in themselves and even give excellent advice to others. Yet when the moment of action arrives, knowledge quietly retreats and habit takes command. Anger speaks before reflection. Comfort defeats discipline. Fear replaces integrity. The problem was never a lack of understanding. The problem was the belief that understanding alone could reshape a life. You must recognize this difference without deceiving yourself. Wisdom admired is not wisdom practiced. Virtue discussed is not virtue possessed. The distance between knowing and becoming is crossed only through repeated action directed by reason. No speech, however persuasive, can replace a single decision made according to principle. When temptation invites you elsewhere, look honestly at your own days. Consider how often your intentions remain stronger than your conduct. You decide to remain patient, yet irritation governs the first inconvenience. You intend to speak truthfully, yet you soften the truth to avoid discomfort. You promise yourself greater self-command, yet the smallest disappointment determines the condition of your mind. These failures do not mean that virtue is impossible. They reveal that the mind has not yet learned to obey what it already knows. This is why disciplined action must become the center of your practice. Each day presents countless opportunities to strengthen character through ordinary decisions. No dramatic moment is required. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to practice honesty. Every delay becomes an opportunity to practice patience. Every disappointment becomes an opportunity to practice self-restraint. Every responsibility becomes an opportunity to practice diligence. Virtue grows through these repeated acts because the soul becomes what it repeatedly chooses. The undisciplined mind constantly searches for extraordinary occasions to prove itself. It imagines that greatness appears only during moments of crisis. Yet the greater part of life unfolds through ordinary duties. You wake, you work, you speak, you wait, you decide, you respond. Within these simple movements, your character is quietly formed. If reason governs these moments faithfully, then no extraordinary event is needed to become a better human being. Many people become discouraged because they expect immediate transformation. They perform one disciplined action and hope the mind will never struggle again. When weakness returns, they conclude that progress has failed. This expectation reveals impatience rather than wisdom. Character resembles no sudden achievement. It develops through countless repetitions. Every disciplined action leaves a small mark upon the soul. Over time, those marks become habits, and habits become character. Each morning, begin by choosing one virtue that deserves particular attention during the coming day. Do not attempt to perfect everything at once. If patience has recently failed you, carry patience into every encounter. If honesty requires strengthening, watch every conversation carefully. If self-restraint remains weak, examine every impulse before acting upon it. Giving deliberate attention to one virtue sharpens awareness because the mind learns to recognize opportunities that would otherwise pass unnoticed. Before leaving the quiet of the morning, remind yourself that circumstances will test your intention. Difficult people will appear. Delays will interrupt your plans. Desires will tempt your judgment. None of these events should surprise you. They exist not as interruptions to your practice, but as the very conditions in which practice becomes possible. Without challenge, virtue remains only an idea. Through challenge, it becomes lived reality. As the day unfolds, resist the urge to measure yourself by impressive achievements. Measure yourself instead by faithful conduct. Did you remain truthful when exaggeration would have been easier? Did you complete your responsibility without seeking recognition? Did you refuse unnecessary complaint when circumstances became uncomfortable? These victories may appear invisible to others, yet they possess greater value than public accomplishments because they strengthen the governing part of your own mind. Notice how often speech tries to replace action. You speak about future discipline while postponing today's responsibility. You describe the person you intend to become instead of becoming that person through immediate choices. You explain why progress has been difficult instead of quietly continuing the work before you. Every unnecessary explanation weakens action because it allows the mind to experience satisfaction without earning it. Replace this habit with another. Whenever you feel compelled to announce your intentions, pause. Ask whether those words would be better expressed through conduct. Instead of promising patience, practice patience. Instead of declaring integrity, act honestly. Instead of describing self-control, govern your impulses. The world has little need for declarations unsupported by consistent behavior. Your own character has even less need for them. One of the greatest obstacles to steady action is attachment to visible results. You perform good work and immediately hope someone notices. You make an honorable decision and secretly expect appreciation. When recognition fails to appear, discouragement enters the mind. Yet this discouragement arises from a mistaken expectation. Your responsibility concerns the action itself, Recognition belongs entirely outside your authority. Once this distinction becomes clear, your effort becomes steadier because it is no longer dependent upon rewards you cannot command. There will be days when your best actions receive criticism instead of praise. There will be moments when honesty creates temporary discomfort. There will be seasons when discipline appears unnoticed. Continue regardless. The value of virtue has never depended upon immediate approval. Right action remains right, whether celebrated or ignored. If you require applause before acting well, your conduct has already become dependent upon something unstable. Throughout the day, examine the smallest decisions with the same seriousness you would give the largest. The character that remains faithful in ordinary moments is prepared for greater responsibilities when they arrive. The character that neglects ordinary discipline rarely discovers extraordinary strength during crisis. Great trials do not suddenly create virtue. They reveal the habits that daily life has already formed. Practice giving your complete attention to whatever duty stands before you. Do not allow the imagination to wander toward future recognition or past disappointment. The present responsibility deserves your full care because it alone remains available for action. Every time attention returns to the task before you, the mind becomes less scattered and more disciplined. This simple return to the present is itself an exercise in virtue because it prevents unnecessary distraction from weakening your effort. You will notice another temptation as progress continues. Pride begins whispering that your discipline deserves admiration. It encourages comparison with those who appear less committed. Guard yourself carefully here. Pride corrupts virtue by changing its purpose. Instead of acting well because reason requires it, you begin acting well to elevate yourself above others. This subtle change weakens the very character you sought to strengthen. Whenever pride appears, return immediately to honest examination. Ask yourself whether today's actions were truly governed by virtue or whether they sought superiority. Remember that another person's weaknesses remain outside your responsibility. Your attention belongs upon your own conduct alone. Comparison distracts from improvement because it shifts focus away from the only life you have been entrusted to govern. Another valuable discipline is fulfilling unnoticed responsibilities with the same care you would give public ones. Clean what requires cleaning. Complete what requires completing. Keep promises whether remembered by others or forgotten. Speak truthfully even when dishonesty would remain undiscovered. These quiet acts build remarkable stability because they teach the mind that integrity exists independently of observation. As evening approaches, resist the temptation to evaluate the day by comfort or success alone. Instead, conduct a careful examination of your actions. Ask where your conduct reflected your highest judgment. Ask where habit defeated intention. Ask where you acted faithfully despite inconvenience. Ask where words replaced necessary effort. These questions expose the true condition of your character far more accurately than external achievements ever could. Do not become discouraged by imperfections discovered during this review. Honest observation is itself an act of discipline. The person who refuses examination remains trapped by hidden weaknesses. The person who examines daily gradually uncovers the habits that require correction. Each clear observation becomes the starting point for wiser action tomorrow. When failure appears, treat it as instruction rather than identity. One impatient response does not define your character unless repeated without correction. One neglected duty does not destroy virtue unless accepted without examination. The disciplined person learns from each mistake because reason transforms every failure into material for future improvement. You must also understand that steady action requires endurance. Excitement fades quickly. Motivation rises and falls. Circumstances change continually. If your discipline depends upon feeling inspired, it will disappear whenever inspiration weakens. Virtue demands something deeper than emotion. It requires commitment to reason even when enthusiasm is absent. The mind becomes trustworthy only after learning to act according to principle rather than passing feelings. There is profound freedom in this consistency. You stop negotiating with every impulse because your direction has already been chosen. You no longer ask each morning whether you feel like acting well. You understand that your duty remains unchanged regardless of emotional weather. This stability brings quiet confidence because your life is no longer governed by fluctuating moods. As weeks become months, the effects of steady action begin revealing themselves. You react less impulsively because patience has become familiar. You speak more honestly because truthfulness has become habitual. You endure inconvenience with greater calm because self-restraint has grown stronger through repeated exercise. None of these changes occur suddenly. They emerge gradually through countless ordinary choices faithfully repeated. Others may eventually notice this transformation, but that must never become your aim. The purpose of virtue is not admiration. The purpose of virtue is the right ordering of your own soul. If recognition comes, receive it without attachment. If it never comes, continue exactly as before. Your reward has always been the strengthening of your own character, not the opinions formed by those around you. Every day offers another opportunity to place action above appearance. Every decision allows you to choose discipline instead of excuse. Every encounter invites you to express your principles through conduct rather than conversation. The path remains simple, even when it is difficult. Know what is right. Choose what is right. Repeat what is right. Allow reason to govern each ordinary moment until virtue becomes less a subject you discuss and more the manner in which you quietly live. Carry this understanding into tomorrow without seeking dramatic change. Begin with the next responsibility before you. Perform it carefully, perform it honestly, perform it without unnecessary display. Then move to the next duty with the same attention. Over time, these steady actions become stronger than any promise you could make, because they shape the only thing that truly belongs to you, the condition of your own character. When your life consistently reflects your principles, words lose the burden of proving who you are. Your conduct speaks with greater clarity than explanation ever could, and your soul grows stronger through the quiet discipline of actions faithfully repeated day after day. Number 8. Endure unfair criticism without surrendering your peaceful reason. Unfair criticism has a strange power over an undisciplined mind. It can follow you long after the voice that spoke it has become silent. One careless sentence can occupy your thoughts through an entire day. One false judgment can disturb your sleep. One unfair accusation can persuade you to question your own worth. Yet pause for a moment and examine what has truly happened. Another person formed a judgment. They gave that judgment a voice. After that moment, everything else that followed took place inside your own mind. This is where your real struggle begins. It is not with the criticism itself. It is with the judgment you choose to make about that criticism. Most people believe they are wounded by another person's words. In reality, they are often wounded by the authority they grant those words. They hear criticism and immediately treat it as a final verdict. They stop examining whether it deserves acceptance. They surrender reason before reason has even entered the conversation. This is how an undisciplined mind abandons its own government. It allows another person's opinion to become law without first asking whether that opinion deserves obedience. Your first task is not to answer criticism. Your first task is to preserve the order of your own mind. A person who immediately reacts has already surrendered something valuable. The greatest danger is not that another person has spoken unfairly. The greatest danger is that you may begin thinking unfairly about yourself or about them. The moment your judgment becomes corrupted by resentment, fear, or wounded pride, The criticism has accomplished something that no words alone could ever achieve. There is an important truth that many avoid because it requires discipline. You cannot prevent people from forming false opinions. Human beings judge according to the limits of their own understanding. They speak according to their own habits. Some observe carefully before reaching conclusions. Others speak quickly without examining anything. Their conduct belongs to them. It does not belong to you. Your responsibility begins only when those words reach your own awareness. At that point, reason must become the judge rather than emotion. Notice what usually happens after unfair criticism appears. The mind immediately begins constructing a defense. It searches for perfect replies. It imagines future conversations where every misunderstanding is corrected. It repeats the criticism again and again until the original words become stronger in memory than they ever were in reality. This process creates unnecessary suffering because it extends a brief event into a lasting occupation of the mind. The person who criticized you may already be thinking about something entirely different while you continue carrying their words as though they were your own burden. This habit must be interrupted through conscious examination. Ask yourself what actually occurred. Separate the event from your interpretation. A person expressed an opinion. That is the event. You concluded that your peace was now threatened. That is your judgment. These two things are not the same. The first belongs to another person. The second belongs entirely to you. Once this distinction becomes clear, you begin reclaiming authority over your inner life. Every morning, prepare yourself for encounters with imperfect people. Expect that some individuals will misunderstand your intentions. Expect that some will criticize carelessly. Expect that some will speak from impatience rather than careful reflection. This expectation is not pessimism, it is preparation. A mind prepared for human weakness is less likely to become disturbed when weakness appears. You stop demanding that reality conform to your preferences and begin training yourself to respond according to principle. As the day begins, remind yourself that your purpose is not to avoid criticism. Such a goal depends upon countless factors beyond your authority. Instead, make it your aim to remain just, truthful, and self-controlled regardless of what others choose to say. This intention places your attention upon what truly belongs to you. Peace becomes possible because your success no longer depends upon controlling another person's speech. When criticism arrives, resist the desire to judge it immediately. The first impression often carries strong emotion but little clarity. Allow reason time to examine what has been heard. Ask whether the criticism contains any truth that deserves correction. If it does, receive that truth without resentment because honest improvement strengthens character. If the criticism proves false after careful examination, release it without hostility because falsehood cannot damage virtue unless you allow it to disturb your judgment. Many people fear criticism because they confuse reputation with character. Reputation exists in the minds of others. Character exists within your own choices. Reputation changes according to circumstances beyond your command. Character changes only according to the decisions you freely make. If you protect reputation while neglecting character, you have sacrificed something lasting for something uncertain. Protect character first, and let reputation follow whatever course it may. There will be moments when unfair criticism appears especially painful because it comes from someone whose opinion you value. This makes the discipline even more important. Respect for another person does not require surrendering your faculty of judgment. Listen carefully, examine honestly, correct yourself where reason demands, yet never abandon your own examination simply because another voice speaks with confidence. Truth is not determined by volume or authority. It must still pass through reason before receiving your acceptance. Observe how quickly the imagination enlarges criticism beyond its original size. A single remark becomes evidence that everyone must think the same way. One disagreement becomes proof that all your efforts have failed. This habit of enlargement creates suffering that reality never required. The disciplined mind refuses such exaggeration. It limits each event to what actually occurred and refuses to decorate it with fearful conclusions. During difficult moments, direct your attention toward your own conduct rather than another person's behavior. Ask whether you have remained patient. Ask whether your speech remains truthful. Ask whether resentment has begun quietly directing your thoughts. These questions strengthen self-government because they return attention to the one place where meaningful action remains possible. There is another danger hidden within unfair criticism. It tempts you to become unfair in return. You begin searching for faults in the other person. You collect reasons to dislike them. You rehearse harsh judgments to restore wounded pride. Yet this response harms you far more than it harms them. The moment you allow bitterness to replace reason, your own character begins paying the price for another person's lack of discipline. Practice meeting criticism with curiosity before reaction. Ask what can be learned even from unpleasant experiences. Perhaps the criticism reveals nothing about your conduct, but much about your attachment to approval. Perhaps it exposes impatience hidden beneath confidence. Perhaps it reveals that your peace has depended too heavily upon favorable opinions. Even false criticism can become useful if it uncovers weaknesses within your own thinking. Another valuable exercise is refusing to continue arguments within your imagination after they have ended in reality. Many people spend hours replaying conversations that cannot be changed. They create perfect responses long after the opportunity has passed. This habit strengthens attachment to the past while weakening attention to the present. Each time you notice this pattern beginning, gently return your mind to the duty before you. No amount of mental repetition can alter what has already occurred. As you continue this practice, you will discover that unfair criticism gradually loses much of its power. This does not happen because people stop criticizing. It happens because your peace no longer depends upon preventing criticism from existing. Your stability rests upon disciplined judgment rather than favorable circumstances. What once disturbed you for days now passes through the mind without remaining there. Do not mistake this calm for indifference. A disciplined person does not become careless toward truth. If criticism reveals genuine faults, correction is welcomed. If misunderstanding creates practical consequences requiring clarification, reason may call for measured speech. The difference is that action now arises from wisdom rather than wounded emotion. You no longer respond because your pride demands relief. You respond only when virtue requires it. Throughout the day, practice distinguishing between what belongs to your authority and what belongs elsewhere. Another person's words belong to them. Your interpretation belongs to you. Another person's motives belong to them. Your response belongs to you. Another person's fairness belongs to them. Your commitment to justice belongs to you. Every time this distinction becomes clearer, inner freedom grows stronger. As evening arrives, examine your encounters with criticism honestly. Do not ask whether others treated you fairly. That question often depends upon circumstances beyond your command. Instead, ask whether you treated your own mind fairly. Did you examine before believing? Did you preserve reason before reacting? Did you allow resentment to remain unchallenged? Did you return your attention to what lay within your authority after the encounter had ended? When you discover moments where criticism unsettled you more deeply than wisdom required, do not become discouraged. Treat those moments as teachers rather than enemies. They reveal where further discipline is needed. Every disturbance points toward an attachment waiting to be examined. Every emotional struggle contains an invitation to strengthen reason through clearer judgment. Understand that peace is not created by surrounding yourself with people who never criticize you. Such a condition has never existed and never will. Peace is created by training your mind until criticism no longer possesses the authority to govern your inner condition. This freedom belongs to anyone willing to examine their own judgments with honesty and patience. There will always be voices eager to praise and voices eager to condemn. If you chase one and flee the other, your life will remain divided by forces outside your command. But if you root your attention firmly in virtue, both praise and criticism lose their ability to determine your direction. They become passing events rather than permanent masters. Continue strengthening this discipline every single day. Let each criticism become an opportunity to practice careful examination. Let each misunderstanding remind you of the boundary between your responsibility and another person's judgment. Let every difficult encounter become another exercise in preserving the order of your own mind. Over time, you will notice that your peace no longer depends upon silence from the world. It depends upon clarity within yourself. The strongest person is not the one who never hears unfair words. The strongest person is the one who hears them without surrendering the calm government of reason. Such a person remains open to truth without becoming captive to opinion. They remain willing to improve without becoming enslaved to approval. They endure criticism without allowing bitterness to shape their character. Their peace survives because it rests upon disciplined judgment rather than changing voices. This is the freedom that cannot be given by others and cannot be taken away by them. It is earned through daily practice, honest examination, and the unwavering decision to let reason remain the rightful ruler of your inner life. Number 9. Govern your mind and let conduct reveal your worth. Your life is governed long before your actions become visible. Every word you speak, every decision you make, every habit you repeat first passes through the quiet territory of your own mind. If that inner place remains neglected, no outward effort will remain stable for long. A person may appear disciplined for a short time through determination alone, but eventually the condition of the mind reveals itself through conduct. This is why the greatest responsibility you carry is not managing appearances. It is governing the thoughts, judgments, and choices that shape every action before the world ever sees them. Many people spend enormous effort trying to influence how they are perceived while giving very little attention to how they govern themselves. They carefully organize their public image, yet leave their private thinking undisciplined. They become concerned with reputation while neglecting character. They seek admiration while allowing resentment, impatience, fear, and pride to remain unchallenged within. This division creates a restless life because no outward recognition can compensate for inward disorder. Peace cannot exist where the ruling part of the mind has surrendered its authority. Look honestly at the beginning of your own difficulties. Rarely do they begin with external events alone. More often they begin with an unquestioned judgment. Something unexpected happens, and the mind immediately labels it unbearable. Someone disagrees with you, and the mind declares itself insulted. A delay appears, and the mind calls it injustice. These judgments arrive so quickly that they seem inseparable from reality itself. Yet they are not reality. They are interpretations. If you never examine them, they quietly become the invisible rulers of your conduct. The disciplined life begins by interrupting this automatic process. Before accepting any judgment, ask whether reason approves it. This simple habit changes everything because it places a pause between the event and your response. Within that pause lies your freedom. Without it, habit governs you. With it, reason begins reclaiming its rightful place. Each morning offers an opportunity to establish this inner government before the demands of the day begin. Do not wake immediately thinking about other people, unfinished tasks, or uncertain outcomes. Begin by examining your own mind. Ask what kind of person you intend to be regardless of what circumstances unfold. Decide that your conduct today will be directed by justice rather than convenience, by patience rather than irritation, by honesty rather than fear. These decisions do not control the world around you. They prepare the world within you. Carry this intention into every ordinary activity. When conversation begins, notice not only the words being spoken, but also the judgments forming inside your own mind. Are you listening carefully, or are you already preparing your defense? Are you seeking understanding, or are you protecting your pride? These questions reveal whether your conduct is being guided by reason or by impulse. The undisciplined mind constantly seeks excuses for its own reactions. It says that anger was inevitable because another person behaved poorly. It claims that impatience was justified because circumstances became difficult. It insists that dishonesty was necessary because truth would have been uncomfortable. Every excuse weakens self-government because it transfers responsibility away from the one place where change remains possible. A disciplined person refuses this habit. They accept complete responsibility for their own judgments even when circumstances remain challenging. Understand that governing the mind does not mean suppressing every feeling. Feelings arise naturally as part of human experience. The question is whether they become rulers or visitors. When emotion appears, welcome its presence without granting it authority. Allow reason to examine it carefully before action follows. This discipline protects both your peace and your integrity because it prevents temporary emotions from producing lasting consequences. One of the greatest tests of self-government appears during moments of disappointment. Plans fail, efforts go unnoticed, expectations collapse. In these moments, the mind quickly searches for someone to blame or something to resent. Resist this movement. Instead, ask what remains within your authority. You may not control the outcome that occurred, but you always retain the ability to choose your next judgment. This choice determines whether disappointment becomes a teacher or a prison. Throughout the day, observe how often your attention wanders toward matters outside your control. You wonder how others evaluate you. You worry about future events that have not yet arrived. You replay conversations that cannot be changed. Each time attention leaves the present responsibility, gently return it. Your life is shaped only by the choices available now. Everything else belongs either to memory or imagination. Conduct reveals the true condition of the mind because actions cannot hide hidden habits forever. A person may speak confidently about patience, but repeated irritation exposes what has not yet been mastered. Another may describe honesty with conviction, yet small acts of deception reveal divided judgment. This should not discourage you, it should encourage deeper examination. Conduct is valuable because it shows where further discipline is required. Instead of becoming embarrassed by these discoveries, become grateful for them. Every inconsistency between your principles and your actions points directly toward the next area requiring attention. Without such evidence, you would continue believing yourself more disciplined than you truly are. Honest observation protects you from the pride that often accompanies partial progress. Practice giving greater attention to what you repeatedly do than to what you occasionally intend. Intentions possess value only when they become action. A single disciplined choice, repeated consistently, shapes character more effectively than countless admirable plans left unfinished. Ask yourself each evening not what you hoped to accomplish, but what you actually practiced. Conduct always provides a more reliable measure than aspiration alone. There will be moments when your conduct falls short of your own standards. You will speak too quickly. You will judge too harshly. You will allow distraction to weaken your attention. When these failures appear, resist two common errors. Do not excuse them, and do not despair because of them. Excuses prevent growth. Despair prevents effort. Honest correction avoids both extremes. Acknowledge the mistake completely, understand the judgment that produced it, and prepare to respond differently when the next opportunity arrives. Another powerful discipline is learning to remain unchanged by praise. Favorable opinions often create the illusion that no further improvement is necessary. The mind begins relaxing its vigilance because approval feels like proof of completion. Yet character remains unfinished every day you continue living. Accept appreciation with humility, but return immediately to examination. Your own conduct tomorrow matters far more than yesterday's recognition. Likewise, do not allow criticism to distract you from your true work. If another person misunderstands your intentions, continue governing your own mind faithfully. If they question your character without reason, remain committed to right action. Your task has never been to control opinions. Your task has always been to keep your judgments aligned with virtue. Conduct rooted in reason eventually speaks more clearly than endless attempts at persuasion. One of the clearest signs that the mind is becoming well governed is increasing simplicity. Decisions become less confused because they are measured against consistent principles rather than changing emotions. Speech becomes more careful because every word serves a purpose. Daily responsibilities receive steady attention because excuses lose their influence. The mind no longer wastes energy debating whether discipline is worthwhile. It has already accepted discipline as its natural path. As this simplicity grows, another change quietly appears. You stop measuring your worth through comparison. You no longer ask whether others possess greater success, greater recognition, or greater influence. Those questions lose importance because your attention has returned to its proper place. The only comparison that remains useful is between today's conduct and yesterday's. Progress becomes personal rather than competitive. Guard yourself carefully against the desire to display your virtue. The moment good conduct becomes a performance, it begins serving reputation instead of reason. Perform your duties because they are right, not because they attract admiration. Complete your responsibilities with the same care whether anyone notices or not. Integrity that depends upon observation is incomplete. Integrity becomes genuine when it remains constant even in complete privacy. Train yourself to value consistency above intensity. Many people act with great discipline for a short period before returning to old habits. Lasting character is built differently. It grows through ordinary faithfulness repeated without interruption. A calm response today, an honest answer tomorrow, a patient decision next week. These small victories accumulate until they reshape the governing habits of the mind itself. Each evening, sit quietly and review the day without haste. Examine your conduct carefully. Where did reason lead your actions? Where did impulse quietly take command? Which judgments strengthened your peace? Which judgments disturbed it unnecessarily? This daily examination is one of the greatest protections against self-deception because it prevents weakness from hiding beneath good intentions. Do not perform this review to condemn yourself. Perform it to educate yourself. Every observation becomes instruction for tomorrow. Every mistake becomes an opportunity to strengthen judgment. Every success becomes evidence that disciplined practice is producing genuine change. Character grows not through perfection but through continuous correction guided by reason. Remember that your worth cannot be established through speeches about your values. It cannot be secured through endless explanations or defended through arguments alone. Worth becomes visible through the quiet pattern of your daily conduct. People may misunderstand your words, but they cannot ignore consistent integrity forever. More importantly, your own conscience recognizes the difference between appearance and reality long before anyone else does. Carry this understanding into every new day. Govern the thoughts that arise before they become decisions. Govern the decisions before they become habits. Govern the habits before they become character. In doing so, you shape the only life that has truly been entrusted to your care. You cease living according to impulse and begin living according to deliberate judgment. When your mind is governed by reason, your conduct no longer requires constant defense. Your patience becomes its own explanation. Your honesty becomes its own testimony. Your discipline becomes its own evidence. Your calm becomes its own answer to confusion. Others may continue forming opinions according to their own understanding, but your peace no longer depends upon those judgments because it rests upon something far more stable. The greatest achievement is not convincing the world that you possess virtue. The greatest achievement is becoming the kind of person whose conduct quietly reflects it in every ordinary moment. Such a life needs little announcement, because its evidence appears in every choice. The mind remains ordered because it has accepted reason as its guide. The actions remain steady because they arise from disciplined judgment rather than passing emotion. This is the path toward lasting freedom. Govern your own mind first, and allow your conduct to reveal your worth without demanding recognition, seeking approval, or asking the world to confirm what only your own character can truly prove. Number 10. Live each day proving virtue through actions alone always. Most people speak about virtue far more often than they practice it. They describe who they wish to become. They repeat ideas about discipline, integrity, and self-control. They even admire those qualities in others. Yet their daily life often reveals a gap between what they believe and what they actually do. This gap is not caused by ignorance. It is caused by a habit of treating words as substitutes for action. A mind that is satisfied with speaking about virtue never feels the pressure to live it fully. You must begin by seeing this clearly in yourself, without excuse. Every time you explain your values without expressing them through conduct, you weaken your inner authority. Every time you promise discipline without practicing it in the next available moment, you train your mind to tolerate inconsistency. Every time you admire virtue in theory but avoid its demands in reality, you create division within yourself. That division becomes the source of unrest, because a life split between belief and behavior cannot remain steady for long. The Stoic path removes this division completely. It does not ask what you can say about virtue. It asks what your actions already prove. A single honest choice carries more weight than 1,000 words about honesty. A single act of patience during frustration carries more truth than endless discussion about emotional control. A single moment of self-restraint carries more meaning than all explanations of discipline combined. Your life becomes clear only when conduct replaces commentary. Begin each day by reminding yourself that no speech is required to demonstrate character. You do not need to announce patience. You do not need to declare honesty. You do not need to explain self-control. These qualities are not validated by expression. They are revealed through behavior. The day does not ask for your descriptions. It asks for your decisions. Before you engage with anything external, examine your internal state. Notice what judgments are forming without your permission. Notice how quickly the mind begins evaluating circumstances, assigning blame, or anticipating recognition. These automatic reactions are where your real training begins. If you never question them, they will silently direct your actions throughout the day. But if you examine them carefully, reason begins reclaiming its role as guide. Every situation that follows becomes a field of practice. When someone interrupts you, you observe whether patience remains present. When plans change unexpectedly, you observe whether acceptance or resistance arises. When praise appears, you observe whether pride begins to expand. When criticism appears, you observe whether resentment takes control. None of these moments are obstacles to virtue. They are opportunities for its expression. The undisciplined mind constantly seeks to separate life into two categories. It calls certain moments important and others unimportant. It believes virtue is practiced only in serious situations. This is a mistake. Character is not formed in rare events. It is formed in repetition. The way you respond to small inconveniences reveals more about your discipline than any grand declaration ever could. A life governed by Stoic principle is consistent across both major and minor circumstances. You must train yourself to act without needing recognition. Much of human behavior is shaped by the desire to be seen as good rather than to be good. This desire leads to inconsistency because it depends on the presence of observers. When no one is watching, discipline weakens. When approval is absent, motivation fades. But virtue does not require witnesses. It requires only reason and action aligned with it. Practice doing what is right without announcing it. Complete your responsibilities without drawing attention to them. Offer help without expecting acknowledgement. Speak truthfully even when silence would be easier. These quiet actions build a foundation of character that does not rely on external validation. Over time, the mind becomes less interested in being perceived correctly and more interested in acting correctly. Throughout the day, you will encounter opportunities to choose between explanation and execution. The mind often prefers explanation because it creates the feeling of progress without the difficulty of effort. It feels satisfying to describe discipline. It feels easier to talk about patience than to practice it. But satisfaction without action produces no real change. Only conduct transforms character. When you feel the impulse to justify yourself, pause. Ask whether action would communicate more clearly than words. Often, the most disciplined response requires no explanation at all. A calm action carries more authority than a defensive speech. A consistent pattern of behavior eliminates the need for persuasion. Let your conduct speak with clarity that words cannot match. You must also become aware of how quickly the mind seeks excuses for inaction. It tells you that conditions are not ideal. It suggests that timing is not right. It insists that more preparation is needed before discipline can begin. These thoughts are comfortable, but they delay the only thing that matters, which is action in the present moment. Virtue never depends on perfect conditions. It depends on present choice. Each time you overcome this hesitation, you strengthen your capacity for self-governance. The mind learns that excuses do not determine behavior. Reason does. This learning does not come from reflection alone. It comes from repeated action against resistance. Every small victory over hesitation builds stability within the mind. There is another subtle danger that must be recognized. As you begin to act more consistently in accordance with reason, the mind may attempt to turn even this progress into identity. It may begin thinking of itself as disciplined. This creates pride, and pride weakens attention. The Stoic path does not require identity. It requires continuous practice. You are not a finished example of virtue. You are a mind that must be governed each day through repeated choice. Remain focused on conduct itself, not on the image of who you are becoming. Identity easily becomes a distraction because it encourages comparison and self-congratulation. Conduct, on the other hand, keeps attention rooted in the present. Each action stands on its own merit. Each decision is evaluated by whether it aligns with reason. During moments of difficulty, remind yourself that virtue is not proven by comfort. It is proven by response. When frustration appears, the test is whether you remain steady. When delay occurs, the test is whether you remain patient. When misunderstanding arises, the test is whether you remain just. These tests do not require special circumstances. They appear constantly in ordinary life. You will begin to notice that, as your actions become more consistent, your need for words decreases. There is less desire to explain yourself because conduct has already communicated what words once attempted to express. There is less urgency to defend your choices because steady behavior makes defense unnecessary. The mind becomes quieter not because you withdraw from life, but because you no longer depend on verbal justification for your sense of stability. Each evening, review your conduct without distortion. Do not ask whether others approved of you. Do not ask whether outcomes were favorable. Ask whether your actions aligned with reason. Where did you act with discipline? Where did impulse take control? Where did hesitation replace choice? Where did virtue appear clearly in your behavior? These questions reveal the truth of your day more accurately than any external measure. This examination is not meant to create guilt. It is meant to create awareness. Awareness is the beginning of refinement. Without seeing your own behavior clearly, you cannot improve it. With clear observation, every mistake becomes a guide towards stronger action tomorrow. You must understand that living by Stoic principle is not about achieving perfect behavior. It is about maintaining continuous alignment between judgment and action. Imperfection will appear. That is part of human nature. The difference between discipline and disorder lies in what you do after imperfection appears. Do you justify it and continue unchanged, or do you examine it and adjust your response? True progress is measured by direction, not by absence of failure. If your actions are steadily moving toward greater consistency, greater honesty, and greater self-control, then you are already practicing philosophy in its most essential form. If your actions remain inconsistent despite frequent reflection, then words have replaced practice and correction is needed. As days pass, something subtle but profound will begin to change. You will stop needing to convince yourself that you are improving. Improvement will become visible in your own conduct. You will notice fewer contradictions between what you believe and what you do. Your life will begin to feel more unified because action and principle are no longer separated. This unity is the real aim of Stoic discipline, not admiration, not reputation, not explanation, but alignment between mind and conduct. A person who lives this way does not require constant validation because their actions already express their principles clearly. They do not need to announce virtue because it is already visible in how they live. Continue each day with this simple commitment. Let your actions demonstrate your principles without unnecessary speech. Let your conduct carry the weight of your beliefs. Let your behavior confirm what your words no longer need to prove. Over time, this practice transforms not only how you are perceived, but more importantly, how you understand yourself. When life is guided by action rather than explanation, confusion diminishes. When conduct reflects reason consistently, inner conflict weakens. When virtue is lived instead of described, the mind becomes steadier and more coherent. In this state, there is no need to perform discipline. Discipline becomes the natural expression of how you move through the world. This is the final lesson. Live in such a way that your actions are sufficient evidence of your character. Let nothing unnecessary remain between what you believe and what you do. Allow reason to govern each moment, and let conduct reveal what words can never fully express.